So please, I invite you to join us in a spirit of meditation and even prayer, some of us would say, as we deepen into our service and share our opening words for this morning. Spirit of life, you speak to us from the east and the west. You speak to us from the north and the south. You call us from the depths of our being. We respond with enthusiasm and fervor. We cry out from Manila to Maui. We shout from Alaska to Alabama. We proclaim your wondrous love from the highest mountain to the deepest ocean. Our voices must be heard. We shall not be silent. Our voices must be heard. So again, I invite you into a spirit of meditation and prayer as we share these words. Between two words, choose the quieter one. Between word and silence, choose listening. Between two books, choose the dustier one. Between the earth and the sky, choose a bird. Between two animals, choose the one who needs you more. Between two children, choose both. Between the lesser and the bigger evil, choose neither. Between hope and despair, choose hope. It will be harder to bear. And introduce Representative Ruth Buffalo, serving her first of many, I hope, terms. Yeah, in the North Dakota legislature. Let's do that. Ruth is a water protector. Ruth is a champion for human beings and our planet, and a true champion for Indigenous people, particularly murdered and missing Indigenous people in our legislature and in our world, and is also a dear friend of mine. It's good to see you, and I think we're ready. Please welcome again Ruth Buffalo.
Thank you for the introduction. It's an honor to stand here before you. I want to honor my ancestors and your ancestors and show respect by introducing myself in the Hidatsa language. Nido Shadzi Nakbaga'o, Madashi Mia Adash Heads, Ma Be Sagids, Ma Zagidads Nakbaga'o. My name is Ruth Buffalo. I'm named after my late grandmother Ruth, and I also carry her Hidatsa name, Woman Appears. I'm originally from Mandaree, and I'm the granddaughter of the late Ruth Rabbithead and Theodore Joseph Buffalo Bowman Sr. My grandparents passed away a year before I was born, and they survived the flood of our bottomlands, where 94% of our agricultural land was flooded for the making of the Garrison Dam so that Bismarck could have flood control. But as a result of that, it split our once centralized community into 6 smaller fragmented communities. And so my grandparents relocated up to the area called Independence. And the house that they relocated to is still standing. It's a 1-bedroom house, and there was a log cabin next to it where my grandma, her dad lived there, and she took care of him in his elderly days. But I just wanted to acknowledge my grandparents and the tribe, my mom's tribe, in which I was raised in Mandaree, because I feel like a lot of their struggle is what I carry with me in trying to make a difference in today's world. Some of you might remember that in 2016 I ran for insurance commissioner. I lost, but I learned so much. And I was really inspired by reaching so many people and hearing their stories. And a lot of my first cousins, older first cousins, it was their first time voting ever. And so that really had an impact on me, and I wanted to figure out ways to continue carrying the work forward. And then a little story, I mentioned the flood and the transition that different families had to overcome. My grandparents chose to stay in the area, but as a result of being so far out in the country, the bus lines didn't go way out there. And so my mom got sent to a boarding school at 5 years old. And so there she has so many stories of traumatic stories. And this is my mom, just one generation from me. My mom grew up with, prior to going out to being sent away to boarding school, they didn't have running water. It was hauling water and outhouse and, just still a lovely, even though they experienced trauma and tragedy from 94% of our agricultural land being underwater, a lot of the stories my mom has of when she was home during the summertime from boarding school was that she was outside all the time on horses. So there's a lot of resilience and beauty in our communities, but I just wanted to share that my mom, when she was at boarding school, and that's kind of why I wanted to share the language, and I'm still learning, and I don't know everything, so I'm trying to learn. Like, I'm also Mandan, and the only phrase that I know in Mandan is Shokshi Skina, and that means what the heck, or as translated, what the heck is going on here? It's like, I thought I should add that to lighten the mood here, because it's sad stuff that I'm talking about, and it's heavy stuff, but I wanted to make mention of who I am and where I came from. And my grandpa, when he was facing life after the flood, he was trying to find work off of the reservation, and he ran into a lot of problems, a lot of challenges with the last name Buffalo. So he did end up changing the last name, as did many others, to more English-sounding last names. And so when I was 19, my mom and a few other of our family members changed the last name back to Buffalo, and so I chose to do the same to honor my grandparents and the struggle that they overcame. So it was with great pride, really, that when I ran in 2016 in a statewide race, to have that reach with my grandpa's last name of Buffalo, across the state, because I have a lot of stories of my grandpa where he was very intelligent. He knew the language, he knew Russian, he knew Norwegian, all kinds of other tribes he knew, and he was friends with people from throughout the area and the region. But I can't imagine what he was thinking when he had to change, or chose to change the last name, and then his children, being sent to boarding schools at such a young age. And I know my grandpa was a very good person, a very strong, resilient person. And so I just wanted to make mention of that, and how we are still trying to make strides today. One story that my grandpa was known for is that he always helped others. One time there was a family stranded on the side of the road, and it was the middle of night, and my grandpa stopped and helped them, got their car running again. And the dad in the car said, well, he was trying to give him a big lump sum of money, and my grandpa refused to take it. And they said, well, how can we ever repay you? And he said, just remember that an Indian helped you. So I just think of how my grandpa was trying to educate others and still be an ambassador back then. So I'm honored to stand here in front of you, and also to be in the legislature. I'm learning so much, and there's so much more work to be done, and I hope that many others will continue to run for office or find ways to help with policy change. Because where I started out, I started doing coalition building as a substance abuse prevention coordinator for my tribe right after I graduated from undergraduate school with a bachelor's in criminal justice. And I had started out pre-med because when my sister, she was 8 years old, in Mandaree, she was misdiagnosed with a health condition. It was appendicitis. But at our field clinic in Mandaree, the physician assistant kept sending my mom home with Tylenol. You know, it's the flu, it's flu-like symptoms, and my little sister wasn't improving. So finally on the third day, my mom, after being turned away again, my mom went to Watford City, and then from there the ambulance rushed my little sister to Williston and then had emergency surgery. And so seeing that at 10 years old in our community, that's kind of what pushed me and nudged me into trying to make changes in our community. I applied to like Indians into medicine and went to that summer institute program every summer from the 7th grade to 12th grade, and then went on to pre-med. And so I share that because I feel like I'm not, I don't think I'm an expert even on the topic missing and murdered Indigenous women and people. It's just mainly seeing something on the ground, so to speak, and just doing something about it. Visiting with others. I've had the honor, I'm thankful to have, women elders in my hometown of Mandaree who really embrace me and have pushed me out there, to run for office or to, push me outside of my comfort zone. And so I'm thankful for those support systems. But there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it, as you already know. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir because I see so many amazing people here in the crowd. So I just wanted to kind of plant a seed, if I could, since it's Women's History Month, and there's so many other strong women that have gone before us and that will come after us. And also growing up in a matriarchal community, being pushed out in front is kind of nothing new, I guess you could say, for Indigenous women or any other women, but just wanting to share that it's important to get involved, and it's also very important to support one another. So I was asked to talk about key legislation, reflections on my first months as a legislator, and insights on justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people moving forward. My background is public health, and in public health we do a lot of prevention. And so when we think of missing and murdered Indigenous people, it's just, it's heavy. It's a heavy topic, and it's hard to talk about. And probably from this past year, last year, well, I want to say, being in Fargo, I represent District 27. August 15th of 2017, Savannah Greywind LaFontaine Greywind went missing in Fargo, and so many of us found ourselves being involved as volunteers and searching for her, trying to find any way just to help. And so from that, we formed a local task force in Fargo called the FM, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Human Trafficking Task Force. And from that task force, it's still very new, so it has room to grow. But something important that came from the task force at the end of December was recommendations of potential legislation for this session. And so always wanting to follow the community grassroots model where things come from the bottom up is my belief, and that's what I want to carry forward in my work. And so these 4 bills, there's actually 5. It's a part of a package. There's 2 bills that are focused on missing and murdered Indigenous people specifically. One is law enforcement training, and this law enforcement training would be provided by the Human Trafficking Commission. And the other, 1313, is related to data collection. And so where it sits today, the language in this bill is related to starting a state repository for missing people and including the Indigenous population. The other 2 bills are on human trafficking. One is providing training related to human trafficking to hotel establishments. And the other bill is related to reaching the schools, providing information to the schools. So we really wanted to look at a comprehensive approach in trying to work proactively in trying to seek justice and also prevent further tragedies from happening. We also did a resolution urging Congress to pass Savannah's Act. And so just kind of with that whole thinking of working upstream, trying to prevent tragedies from happening, trying to keep our communities safe. One summer, well, for 4 consecutive summers, I was, my tribe, MHA Nation, I was our summer youth employment program administrator. So I had the youth for 10 weeks. We had they were our captive audience. And so with that, we tried to cram as much information as we could in those 6 weeks. You know, not only were they getting hands-on job training, but we were also trying to provide professional development, and we also other training like CPR, first aid, Alive at 25 defensive driving. Because during that time, we had a lot of truck traffic on the highways. But one of our youth workers, she escaped abduction in broad daylight. She was walking on the ridge to Mandaree Powwow. Our celebration was happening at that time. And this little red truck pulled up and 2 guys got out and tried to pull her into the truck. And luckily she was able to get away and took off running into the next house. But from that point, then we reached out to North Dakota Safety Council, who provided our Alive at 25 defensive driving course. We reached out to them and asked, you know, do you have anything that could help our youth? And they said, yeah, we do. We have this predator stalker safety awareness course. So we were able to bring that to the community of Fort Berthold, the 6 different districts there. And it included self-defense, but also just being aware of your surroundings. So just always trying to work upstream. You might have heard that story before of the 3 sisters that were walking, we'll say, along the Missouri River. Anybody hear this story? People have heard of the 3 sisters garden, right? 4 sisters, okay. So there's these 3 sisters, they see these babies floating down the river, and so one sister hops in and she asks the other sister, hey, can you get in here and help me? And so that sister follows the other sister who hopped in the river, and they were doing an assembly line of getting the babies out and putting them on the shore. But the 3rd sister took off upstream from the shore, and they said, where are you going? And she said, I'm going to find out who's putting these babies in the water. And so that's kind of something I think that sticks with us when we try to prevent tragedies from happening, and realizing we're not the expert, and to reach out to people who know more than us and to work as a collective. And so that's pretty much all I want to share at this time. I don't want to get all choked up and start crying on other stuff. So, thanks.
Hello, my dear relative, Ruth. It's so good to see you. Well, what you're doing, you know, we're proud of you. We tell you that from home. And you're always in our hearts and in our prayers. And I came out today to hear you and get to see you. Your beautiful endeavors, your wonderful, beautiful heart. And I don't know a lot about the topic, but I know that we as minorities make up 1.1%. You know, of all the minorities in the United States, Native American women make up 1.1%. Native Americans. And of that 1.1%, I just find it astounding that we are a target. So I'm wondering, just from your food for thought, you know, why is that? You know, and when we speak with the elders from home, they come up with their wisdom and their time-honored, just the knowledge handed down. And one of the things I was told was, you know, we are a target all over the world. Women are oppressed, and women, and then you move into minorities, and then you move into Native American, and every time I see what's happening in the United States with Native American women, then I look over into Canada, and then you take that times 10 or times 100, it's even worse, you know, in these more remote areas. And And I just wondered if you have any thoughts on that. I mean, a lot of the scholars, maybe the people in your circles who you know, what do you think about that? And maybe just visit with other Native women and find out what they're thinking too, because there's something about that that is tied to this, and it is a heavy, heavy topic, and there's good people working on all this, and I know supporting you and giving you good information. But I know there's just something in our prophecies even about our tribal prophecies about why it is this is happening to Native American women. So I just want to add that, food for thought, and you don't have to really answer anything, but if you could comment on that in your own thoughts, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madzigiradz. It's good to see you. I actually just came from Maple Lag Resort near Calhoun, Callaway, Minnesota, on the White Earth Nation area, and for an Indigenous farmers conference. It's their 16th annual, and there's a lady there that was presenting, and it was my first time seeing her since 2012. Excuse me. Her name is Glenda Albot, and she's this wonderful, amazing lady who's doing a lot of food sovereignty work, and she's also a doula. But I had met her the summer of 2012, and one of my friends, Sheridan, had reached out to me, and that through Sheridan is how I was able to meet Glenda. Sheridan and I used to do diabetes prevention work. I used to work at United Tribes for 7 years as a Strengthening Lifestyles Wellness Program director, and then Sheridan led her diabetes prevention program in Standing Rock. But that summer, Sheridan reached out and said, "Hey, there's these runners are passing through the Dakotas. Do you want to pick me up and we'll go meet them down in Greasy Grass at Orville's Ranch?" And I was like, "Sure." So the next day, my kids and I drove down, picked Sheridan up at the Sitting Bull College parking lot, and went down and met these runners. And these runners were with the Peace and Dignity runners, and they were fulfilling this prophecy of the eagle and the condor, with the eagle representing North America and the condor representing South America. And this run happens every 4 years. So this last 4 years, this most recent one, I wasn't able to participate in. But when I met Glenda, she was one of the main coordinators of this run, and she was in charge of the Saskatoon Canadian group. But I just actually was able to see her yesterday for the first time, and it was awesome. It was amazing. But one thing comes to mind is the healing with that run, the Peace and Dignity run, and just the work that we have before us. I just keep thinking of healing and how we can heal each other in our communities moving forward, because there's so much trauma that, I mentioned my mom going to boarding school when she was 5 years old and getting punished for speaking her language, and other traumatic stories that they have from the boarding school. But I just think of healing and how we can try to heal ourselves, our communities, and our future generations. But I'm no expert, but I believe that is very important in healing, to answer your question. And I think of the women too, and from a public health perspective, our American Indian population has such a low life expectancy rate, or not rate, but we just have a low life expectancy, or even, MHA Nation, I know our tribe is looking, certain segments are looking to lower the official elder age, because not many people are making it to the age that they're considered elder on paper. So there's so much work. I mean, we have such, as American Indians, Indigenous people, we have off the charts health disparities, and then when we lose our women, it's a huge impact. And with our tribe specifically, like with the Hidatsa, the women pass the clan on to the next generation. I mean, there's just so many different angles where it's just a huge hit for our communities when we lose our women. And then all I can keep thinking about is the importance of healing and trying to be good to one another while we are here on this earth.